guess you're starting to wonder what on earth is going on down in Washington, D.C., and how is it potentially going to affect me and my family? Let's try to get you some answers with our guest, 2nd District Congressman Jim McGovern. He's been a member of the House since 1997 and is the ranking member of the House Rules Committee. Congressman, welcome. Good to have you here.
Great to be with you.
All the way from Worcester. We appreciate it. So we're taping this on a Thursday morning. Later today, you're meeting with folks at the UMass Chan Medical Center to discuss the potential impact of NIH and Medicaid cuts, and there are all sorts of other cuts proposed, National Science Foundation grants and so forth. What does that mean for Massachusetts and our economy?
It means an awful lot for Massachusetts and our economy. NIH is more than just a line item. I mean, it is about investing in research to find cures to things like cancer and every other disease and ailment out there. And Massachusetts has some of the finest medical schools and universities in the world, and we get a pretty big chunk of those research dollars here, which helps support this research that saves lives, but also creates lots and lots of jobs. And so when Elon Musk, Donald Trump's weird, companion, decided to, freeze the NIH budget, that sent chills up the spine of everybody here in Massachusetts that cares about medical research. And we are grateful to Attorney General Campbell for leading other attorney generals in filing suit and stopping those cuts, at least now. But medical research, scientific research is vitally important, not just for Massachusetts, but for our economy overall.
And we're not just talking about a few academic jobs, right? We're talking about research and development, but then also manufacturing and also Medicaid cuts. I mean, we spend a ton on health care, and that budget is heavily subsidized by the feds, right?
Absolutely. And Medicaid not only provides health care for people who struggle and are in the lower income brackets, but it also provides benefits to people who are in the middle income. I mean, oftentimes, when people have long-term care needs, they transition onto Medicaid. But look, we should be talking about expanding healthcare benefits, improving our healthcare system in this country. We shouldn't be talking about how we contract it, how we take benefits away from people. That's short-sighted, and by the way, it doesn't save you any money. It just adds costs in a whole bunch of other areas.
So what are you and your fellow Democrats going to do? What can you do to stop what's going on?
Look, we are fighting like hell.
In what way?
Yeah, well, we are, if you tune in, we're fighting in committee, we're fighting on the floor. We are offering amendments. We are making, demands of this new administration. We are supporting litigation when that is appropriate. And we're using every maneuver and every mechanism available to us to try to stop things that we know will do harm to the people of Massachusetts and of this country. Look, as we speak, the overwhelming majority of the American people disapprove of the way Donald Trump is handling the economy. He came to office in part because he promised he was going to lower the cost of living for people. And the opposite has happened. Prices have gone up, but it's not just eggs, it's gas, it's everything. And with the tariffs that he's putting in place, you're going to see costs rise in construction. And this is not what he promised. And he has been focused on things that are about enriching him and his buddy Elon, and about trying to get a tax cut passed to help millionaires and billionaires, but he hasn't done a damn thing for average working people in this country.
Well, ultimately, the best way for the Democrats to try to slow this down or stop it is to regain control of the House next year. So it's been a few months now since Election Day. Do you believe you understand why the Democrats lost?
Yeah, I do. I think, again, much of this election was around issues that impact people's, quality of life, the cost of living going up. I think people, wanted to see things go down in terms of prices for everything from groceries to you name it, and I think that was a big motivator as to why Trump got more votes. But again, right now, as we speak, and contrary to what Trump promised, which was the economy was going to be where he was focused, I mean, prices have gone up. The majority of Americans disapprove of the way he's handling this economy. He's focusing on things that have nothing to do with the people that I represent.
Well, fine. So you're saying, correct me if I'm wrong, that what hurt the Democrats last year could easily boomerang back on the Republicans next year and in 3 years. But in the meantime, what, if anything, do you believe the Democrats need to change about their messaging and priorities?
Well, I think we have to be in sync with where average working families are. I think we have to be talking about, those bread and butter issues. My old boss, Congressman Joe Moakley, used to say people look at life through their kitchen window. I think he was right. And we have to make sure that we are understanding where so many families, working families are and what they're dealing with, and we have to address those issues. And look, we have to fight Trump because, on the cuts and on the terrible priorities that he is kind of putting forward. But it's not just enough to be against things. We have to be for things. And we have to outline a positive vision that, is convincing, that, average working families will say, yeah, you're on our side. And we are on their side.
Well, can you be a little more specific? Because your colleague Seth Moulton made a stir right after the election when he suggested that the party's messaging on LGBTQ issues was a negative politically.
I don't think that was the deciding factor in the election, and I don't
think he argued it was.
Right, and I also don't believe we should, walk away from our commitment to human rights. Every person in this state, every person in this country deserves to be respected for who they are, and we shouldn't tolerate or try to explain away discrimination. But I do think, we should be focusing on how to make our healthcare system better and more accommodating to people and more affordable for people. I do think we ought to be figuring out, how we address some of these cost of living issues, how we make housing more affordable and accessible for people. And we have a gazillion plans out there that we need to articulate. But again, I think it's basically, talking to people where they're at. I think one of the mistakes that Kamala Harris made was not conceding that people were struggling. I get it. She was Biden's vice president and didn't want to kind of criticize him. But the bottom line is a little more criticism might have been helpful in helping her get over the finish line.
We have just about a minute left, and I'd like to hear from you about what happens if the courts, as they are currently doing, step in and say no to a lot of what the White House is trying to do, and the White House ignores the courts or tries to. What happens then?
Well, then we have a full-blown constitutional crisis. And I think it requires some dramatic action in response. We can't just sit back and let our democracy just fall apart. We can't let Donald Trump and Elon Musk basically rob us of our democracy and disrespect the Constitution. What we need to think about are things like maybe a national strike across this country. And there's precedent in Europe and Poland. I remember a national strike helped stop the communist government from cracking down on the solidarity movement, and then you had paved the way for Lech Walesa to come forward. But we're going to have to be thinking out of the box, because if we have a constitutional crisis, it's not going to be fixed by an amendment. It's going to be fixed by the people. Institutions will not protect our democracy. People will protect our democracy.
I have to wrap this up, but please explain to the viewers what a national strike means.
We all join together and we stop showing up, we stop working. We basically make it clear that this country cannot continue, under a king or under a dictator. Look, Trump is flooding the zone with a gazillion things a day. That's a tactic that fascists and authoritarians use basically to get us to feel hopeless and to get us to do nothing. We can't allow that to happen, and we have to be vigilant, and we have to be prepared to do dramatic things if, in fact, he chooses to ignore the Constitution.
Congressman, thanks for being here.
Happy to be with you.
Come back again soon.
Thanks.